Hello my friends and welcome. It is just crazy what is happening near to Avdiivka. Russia goes on attacks again and again. In those useless attacks to get Avdiivka encircled, they're just losing their army. Let's go to the place. So this is Avdiivka and they continue to advance mostly on the north near to Krasnogorivka. Yesterday, Ukraine moved on a counterattack over here, but Russia sent more reinforcements which were absolutely demolished. Let me show you some of the pictures from the drone cameras. Sorry, I had to hide some of the objects from the place. Probably you understand what is there. And here you can see lots of the Russian infantry vehicles. Mostly they used them right now to break the Ukrainian defense, and just few of the tanks lately were used. The Russian army just goes on the open fields with the same result as it was before, already for 10 days for them in Avdiivka. So today it was one more mid-wave as we call it, but it was much less intense compared to the first day. Then Russia used artillery to bomb Avdiivka itself and pushed with lots of the reinforcements. Here we see that Russia sends just parts of their army, not even close enough to encircle Avdiivka. So why didn't they accumulate the bigger force, much bigger force, lots of the artillery systems to target Avdiivka, to target the Ukrainian positions, and then advance with massive group? It is the only way for them to make this scenario successful. In that case, they would have had lots of the losses, but still they might be at least successful. But here it seems like the logic of the Russian army is to get rid of the Russian army in Avdiivka. Russia is not using the small groups of the soldiers as Ukraine does in Robotyne or Verbovo, where we little by little successfully taking the ground from the Russian side. By the way, today we also have the good update from Verbovo direction. I'll tell you later about it. But Russia uses some forces in the middle, not the small groups, not the very large groups for the blitzkrieg operation, which is easy to be detected and demolished by Ukrainian artillery, plus the minefields around. You know, sometimes I think that definitely Russian command came to the Russian army from the circus. I wouldn't even call it the lack incompetence or something, it's total madness. I think they do it on purpose. I don't have the other explanation for this mess. Losses that Russia has in Avdiivka direction is beyond understanding. What's the goal of this operation? Yes, we may see it as encirclement of Avdiivka, but I don't think that it's even worse the part of the losses that they have. Today we have again tons of the videos from the place, lots of the Russian armored vehicles on fire, totally kaputted by Ukrainian artillery, anti-tank systems and everything we have. My friends, as usual, I'm asking you to support me on Telegram, where I'm able to publish more detailed picture about what is happening on the front lines, because there is much lower censorship compared to this platform. So sorry I'm unable to show you something that I show on Telegram. So my friends, subscribe for me over there. Many of the Russian armored vehicles were already detected from today's pictures: BMPs, MTLBs, tanks and other stuff. Later in this video we're gonna go to the Oryx resource update about the recent losses on the front lines, and those are tremendous for the Russian side. Knowing that the Russian army is unable to restore their military resources very fast, those losses are dramatic for them. The same picture for the Russian army we may also see in Kupiansk direction. We may see BMP-3, I think it's a modern Russian BMP. 4 of them were kaputted near to the Kupiansk. So again, I am speechless about what is the Russian goal. Why are they wasting those resources? Because for Ukraine it was understandable that this tactics is useless in a modern day war if the enemy is evades for your attack. It happened near to Robotyne, and then Ukraine lost quite a lot of the vehicles, but after it Ukraine analyzed the mistakes, and now we assault with a much smaller groups which are hard to detect, very mobile groups. Usually our guys assault during the night time with a very sophisticated equipment that we have, but Russia goes at the daytime, open fields. Please use your artillery against us. They are calling for it. So I think that the generals responsible for those Russian attacks are probably working for Ukraine. The same Russian BMPs, but from the other perspective. It's I'm speechless. Here you might probably see two of the Russian BMPs are going through the road, and later on they were kaboomed by the mines which Ukraine put on that particular road, so they continue to use the roads, the fields, which are not confirmed to be cleared from mines. One more Russian tank is going to its end because there is the line full of mines. You understand what happens next. A very poor planning, a very bad communication inside the Russian army just leads to the total disaster of them in Avdiivka, and not only. The war continues for 600 days and Russian command is not changing. They are not learning on their own mistakes. They continue to send everything just forward, straightforward attacks. They think that they may do the same trick right now as Prigozhin did in Bakhmut, but the Russian army and the Wagner group are two big differences. And I don't see any sort of the perspective for the Russian army command to learn or change something in their main strategy, in using their army in different way, let's say. I just don't know why the Russian soldiers are doing this stuff. It's clearly a suicide mission for them to serve in the Russian army right now, especially in Ukraine. It wasn't the single wave of today's attack, there were two, at least two of the waves. So we have the confirmation of the Ukrainian counterattack which our guys performed near to Krasnohorivka. Mostly we use artillery systems and probably tanks to strike Russians back. I do expect actually the big counterattack of Ukrainian army near to Krasnohorivka because we need to cut the gloves of the Russian army. However, later on Russia pushed again with their forces with unsuccessful attack and all of them were kaput in this area. This picture illustrates all of the confirmed Russian losses, but for the first week of their attack. So we are not including today, yesterday and the day before yesterday in this picture. So for the first week they lost more than 60 vehicles just on the north direction from Avdiivka. As you can see, many of their vehicles were targeted far behind the front lines. It means that Ukrainian artillery is very precise and has the very long range. So this picture is far to be full. We'll see more images and probably Russian generals would decide to go for attack again. I would say that it's the worst Russian army disaster for a very long time. Well, for this year for sure. One more direction, Marinka, the failed Russian attempt to storm Ukrainian positions, as usual. As you can see, Ukraine used the cluster shells to target the Russian infantry after their vehicles were kaputted. Alright, let's go back to our map. We have the advancement of Ukrainian army near to the bridgehead across the Dnieper River. Today our guys moved towards Pershanivka and Poima, almost crossing the road that Russia uses for their supplies of the nearby villages. Let's go for the timeline. Yesterday and today the gray area expanded gradually. I checked out the information of what resources does Ukraine use over there. Those are the special forces for now, so no regular army is used according to my information. But the regular army might be sent later to create the robust bridgehead. I understand that our guys will take the positions and hold them for a very long time, as we did near to Oleshki over here. So potentially it might be the point for the bigger counteroffensive operation of Ukrainian army. If we cross this road here, we may cut supplies for Oleshki. It's great. I was worrying about this river, but our guys crossed it, so the natural obstacle didn't possess any kind of the problems for our guys. Plus we have one more information for now unconfirmed that our guys landed somewhere over here near to Krinky. According to the yesterday's report, some of the Russian artillery systems were kaboomed in this area. This village is located around 26 kilometers away from the current hotspot. Plus, by advancing from both of the sides, from this direction and from this, with massive forces only with them, we may potentially trap the Russian army in this location, because this area is deserted place, just the sand. So they're unable to cross this territory very easily, especially with armored vehicles or tanks. Let me show you the satellite image of that particular place. You can see it's the biggest Ukrainian sandpit. The good news did not end on Kherson area. We also have the update from Avdiivka direction near to Verbovo. Ukrainian army has partial success in this area by taking the ground in this particular place. As I say to you, Ukraine has totally opposite tactics compared to the Russian Federation. Little by little, our army moves with the small groups. And as you can see, Ukrainian army was able to cross the Russian defense lines in many of the areas. So as for today, the situation on the front lines is more positive for Ukraine compared to Russia. More about Verbovo, Ukraine is up to penetrate one more Russian defense line. You may see the Dragon Tis. It's the last one before reaching the vast space where Ukrainian army might maneuver behind the Russian defense lines. Nevertheless, some of the Ukrainian Leopard 2 tanks were spotted not far away from Avdiivka. It means that Ukraine is forced now to send reinforcements in Avdiivka direction to stop the Russian assault, but we stopped them successfully. But we should have used those reserves on the south front lines. Hopefully we can obtain more weaponry to advance on the south more effectively. I guess it's the day of the non-stop good news for Ukrainian side, because as you know, ATACMS missiles were used not just to attack the Berdyansk military airfield, but also the Russian military airfield which they base in Luhansk. Well, what we have is this satellite image. According to it, Russia lost 2 of the K-52 helicopters, plus many of the helicopters were damaged. Totally, they lost 5 of the K-52, which probably never fly. Yes, Berdyansk Kaboom was better than this one, but still, on this apron, none of the Russian helicopters are able to perform their missions any longer. So totally, I think Russia lost 10 of the K-52 helicopters in those 2 attacks. It's the crazy number. How many attack helicopters of those type are left in the Russian army? Probably around 30% from what they started this war last year. It is the heaviest Russian aviation loss per day since the World War II. This shows the power of ATACMS, and Putin said that ATACMS doesn't matter. K-52 helicopters were definitely the pain in the ass for Ukrainian army, especially on the south. Russia is now unable to use them very close to the front lines or unable to use them on the front lines at all. You also may see the impact of the clusters and lots of the cluster shells around the apron. The Oryx resource confirmed the Russian losses, which are tremendous compared to Ukrainian side. So 84 units for Russian army and just 19 for Ukrainian army for the last 3 days, but excluding today. So today it was one more big attack of the Russian army on Avdiivka. So for sure we'll see more vehicles kaboomed, especially for the Russian side. So for the tank losses, Russia lost 16 of the tanks, Ukraine 4. For the MRAPs and BTRs, Russia lost 8, Ukraine 4. For the BMPs, BMDs, Russia lost 18, Ukraine 4. Artillery systems, Russia 18, Ukraine 3. Plus, just in Berdyansk, Russia lost 9 of the helicopters, 5 K-52 helicopters and 4 of Mi-8 helicopters, plus many were damaged in that airfield. And now we know more because the satellite images appear from the Luhansk airfield, where Russia might potentially lost at least 2 of the K-52 helicopters, totally kaboomed, and 3 more were severely damaged. Totally minus 10 of the K-52 attack helicopters for Russia. As it was reported today, one more Sukhoi 25 was targeted by Ukrainian air defense, so totally for the last 10 days, Russia lost 5 of the Sukhoi attack airplanes. We don't see those in statistics because there is no photo or video confirmation about Sukhoi airplanes, but we see the information about that stuff from Ukrainian channels as well as from the Russian channels. Then they shared the tribute for their pilots who lost their lives in this war. About the ATACMS missiles, which play a great role for Ukrainian army nowadays, according to the information coming from the Ukrainian official resources, the United States of America America agreed to supply many of those missiles to Ukrainian army. Before it was said that we'll have the limited option for ATACMS, but now all of the deliveries are very confidential and we'll have many more of those missiles. As our Minister of the Foreign Affairs said, we're gonna also receive the version with 300-kilometer range. One more possible target for Ukrainian ATACMS could be the Belbek airfield near to Sebastopol. Vladimir Putin ordered to send there some of the MiG-31 high-speed airplanes equipped with Kinzhal missiles. Those are hypersonic missiles. He said that it is the response for the United States, which deployed the air carriers not far away from Israel to defend the ally. So clearly, Putin is the ally of Hamas here. Unfortunately, the Belbek airfield is very far away from the Ukrainian controlled territory, so with a standard 165-kilometer range missile we are unable to target this airfield, but with 300 range missile we may easily do it. To some of the latest international news, according to the information coming, which is by the way confirmed by Pentagon, the United States ship Kearney DDG-64 shot down 3 of the cruise missiles not far away from Yemen. It's said that those were launched by Houthi forces in Yemen, which are backed by Iran. Yet we are out of clue the target of those missiles. It could be this ship, because we also have the breaking news report that 2 of the American bases, one in Iraq, the other one in Syria, were attacked by some sort of the drones and missiles. Some media even said that there were the injured personnel in one of the bases. As you can see, it's escalating very fast. I already told you that there could be some of the forces which want to get America involved in the new confrontation in the Middle East to release the support of Ukraine. Good news from Sweden, it seems like they are getting closer to provide the Gripen jets for Ukrainian army. Well, I think that it might take a while. We're not gonna get those in 2024, unfortunately, because they require lots of the logistics, training and other stuff, the same that we do right now for the F-16s. But anyways, it's the good perspective for Ukrainian aviation. Hopefully Swedes will provide those airplanes to Ukraine, and Swedes, you're awesome. About the German-made Taurus cruise missiles, we don't see the signs that they will be supplied to Ukraine in a nearby future, but I expect Germany to finally supply those missiles because the United States already provided us with ATACMS. It could be the point where Chancellor Scholz might change his mind. I think that he worries that the range of this cruise missile is nearly 500 kilometers. They were looking for the software solutions to shorten the range of the missile, but for now it didn't work. Potentially it might be the longest range missile that Ukrainian army has, so Scholz doesn't want to risk taking the final authority and responsibility with his signature providing those missiles to Ukraine. Yes, he is basically scared, but Russia is unable to counter-react to that. What would they do? Bomb Germany? Putin now afraid of his own shadow, so they will not react on that supplyment. Even ATACMS missiles could have been supplied well before. Just a single remark about the situation in Israel, it looks like the ground operation in Gaza might start very soon. We have the information that Israeli army got the green light to conduct the operation. As you can see, Netanyahu visited his soldiers. The sky is clear, almost no clouds, perfect for the drone operators. Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "We are with the soldiers and we are ready." Well, I have my own remark about this, my personal opinion, which I published on my Telegram channel, and I'll just read it out for you. I'm not a great fan of Israeli politics who spoiled many things which partially led to Hamas' influence expansion since 2007. Now soldiers and civilians will have to lose their lives also because of this reason. Netanyahu and basically Israeli government and army command failed to prevent and foresee the Hamas attack on Israel. Now he had to strike Gaza, otherwise he might lose the power very fast. because obviously he will use this revenge operation. He wants it to be successful. Otherwise, there will be many questions towards the Prime Minister of Israel. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, but it's just a decoration. He will be fine and doesn't really need it. Because politics are always behind the front lines. Israeli soldiers will do the job for politics. Unfortunately, it's not the best scenario, which might lead to unpredictable circumstances. From what we know, Israeli army now counts 400,000 soldiers, but their estimate of 50,000 Hamas militants in Gaza. So 8 times more for Israel, and also they have much better equipment. However, the fight is going to take place in the urban environment. Hamas knows the place, Israeli army doesn't. And there are hundreds of tunnels underground which Hamas may potentially use as their supply lines and also to attack the Israeli soldiers. It could be a big bloodbath in Gaza, but with the mistakes that the Israeli politicians and the world leaders did before, unfortunately, there is no any other solution as Netanyahu sees it right now other than taking Gaza physically under control. I can film a long video of the mistakes which Israeli government did, but it's not really the topic of my channel. I give my own opinion about this one. Hopefully there will be as low losses as possible for civilians and for military. My friends, don't forget to press the like to this video, and also if you want to support my job, you may do it on Patreon or just on a sponsorship of this YouTube channel. You may find all the links in the video description just below. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.